Hey, what's up guys and welcome back to Anime King. And today I'm going to be giving you part 11 of What If Naruto failed his Genin test and was given intense training. Remember to get this one to 100 likes as usual. Share this to all of your friends in your social media platform. And also guys, go ahead and check out the brand new episode of What If Naruto had the Rarest Bloodline over on Anime King 2 and enjoy that. And stay tuned for a new episode coming over Anime King 3. Yes, if you're new, you heard that correctly. I indeed have 3 channels: Anime King 2, Anime King 3, which I post what if on every single day for you guys to enjoy. So go ahead and click that red subscribe button and become part of the Anime King family. And thank you for all of your help and support. And yeah, without further ado, what is to begin this new episode? Start the intro. So the last time we left off, they were escorting Sora back to Konoha. None of them knew that they were being used as a pawn, as it was a tricky game, but they were being used. Making their way as they set up for the night, it all happened as sudden, as rocks impaled the entire area. Aoba and all of them moved, as Naruto found himself facing off against a woman who created a pole from the earth and started to attack him. As she was a skilled fighter as he tried, but she knocked him down. Sakura came in to attack the woman, but she impaled Sakura right through the stomach. Naruto lost it as a fox made him a deal. If he took his power from Sora, then he will help him. As Naruto agreed, as Naruto's mind went wild, he attacked the woman with a ferocity. He beat her down into a bloody mess. As he rushed over to Sakura, as he was looking at her unmoving body, suddenly he was enveloped by a blank darkness. The next thing he knew, Sai was standing there, as a tiger had placed Naruto down that should swallow him. And Sakura was back to her feet. Naruto didn't know why the fox made his chakra healer, but it did. Sakura's skin was unblemished, not even a single scar, as she was shocked by that because she was sure that she was feeling the coldness, but yet she was now perfectly fine and she was unaware. As they made their way back to the village, as they couldn't find Aoba, 2 hours passed, they had to move on. As they made their way, someone came in and slammed Naruto away and slammed a seal right on Sora. Sora lost as he started to burst out in the fox form, the chakra being corroded as someone had attacked them. Hiruzen came rushing in as they had to stop Sora. Once the chakra was dispersed, it flew right into Naruto's stomach as his wounds healed rather quickly. As the fox told him if he had did it from the first place and just absorbed what he told him to do from Sora, then none of this would have happened. They were taken to the office as the third explained to them that someone is after the Kyuubi, and they were using them, including Sora as well. As Naruto realized that they were being used as a pawn. And another thing, Aoba was dead. Yes, he died fighting off against the shinobis out there, as he seemed to have been ganged up on, because Sai or Sakura didn't see any of the other people that attacked them while they were sleeping that night. Aoba got killed out there. The team was solemn after that, as people's minds started to flare. After all, they had saw Team 13 came, and then the Kyuubi. So many people blamed Naruto despite him being attacked the first part. People still had the hatred to blame him. Kakashi came as he asked Sarutobi for the team, saying that his team was now basically disposed, they were injured and they weren't able to take part in the Chunin exams. A bit of tough training with them, where Kakashi had decided to show them that any one of them could have died in the field when Ino had died, and he went a bit too hard seeing that they were in the hospital. Yes, and they weren't gonna participate, but Kakashi was told no by Hiruzen, as he already had a team settled for them, a team leader, and that was Yujeu. As she arrived, she met them as all of them recite the same thing they had planned for her. They had waited and planned perfectly. As she just sighed, this was gonna be rather troublesome. So yeah guys, those basically that's what I thought. You guys can switch across the place and check it out for yourself. So to begin this new episode. Training Ground 9 was a square concrete, surrounded by bamboo canes and steel wires. This was her favorite training ground. It could not be accessed easily, and not to mention you couldn't see from outside. Her team was looking at each other rather than her. She supposed that was a norm for any group. She had never taught before, but she needed to leave Anvu since she had all the intentions of getting married. There was simply no other way. Sure, she could have remained at Jonin, but she thought by training these three it was like something towards motherhood. After all, how difficult it was to take care of 3 students. She can use the practice for whenever she had her own kids. She saw the 3 of them standing tightly together. Perhaps the team training was a bit unnecessary, but she had to make sure. Well, she said, as her eyes looked over their attire, she said nothing more about it. The girl, Sakura, was wearing a green jacket with a black shirt underneath, the Konoha symbol on the front, pair of beige shorts, and had ankle-length sandals. Sai was dressed in his usual black attire, but he had 2 tontos instead of 1 strapped to his back. As Naruto black hair was spiked up, the headband was tied around his bicep. He had on a dark brown jacket, and the inner part was red. His shirt was a dark blue navy color, while his trousers were dark crimson, so dark it looked like brown than crimson. And he was wearing black sandals. Would like to test your prowess in battle. Do you prefer one-on-one or team? She was surprised when the gaze did not fall on Sakura, who was supposed to be team leader, but instead they looked towards Naruto. She said nothing about it, though she decided to ask the question later on. One-on-one, said Naruto. She frowned. She expected them to answer as a team because of their closeness. But if that is how they want to play it. Fine, she said. She pointed towards Sakura. You first then. As she smirked. Cherry. Sakura hesitantly walked forward to her right hand, resting on her hip. Her left went towards her pouch. Geo frowned once more. How could she be that slow in drawing shurikens? As she was trying to conceal them, though, that she could admit. She also pulled a kunai. Yujiro then nodded for her to begin, as a kunai was sailed towards her. She huffed as she simply dodged away from the kunai and moved away from all the shurikens. She closed the distance between them in a flash, but then she had to avoid tontos coming at her, as 3 black ink snakes came towards her other side. She was about to say something when she saw those cold eyes. The will to murder was something that was taught in Anvu. However, Genins were not supposed to know it. It is not like they weren't able to defend themselves, but there was a difference between charging in to prevent yourself from getting wounded or to buy time for your teammate to help you. And there was a difference between charging in to kill. She knew that Hatake always said, come at me with the intent to kill, every time he trained his students, but no one ever understood what he meant. She flexed her toes as she jumped. As she disappeared in a flash of leaf, she watched in the trees. As they stand shoulder to shoulder, the 2 boys with tontos and the girl with a kunai. She grabbed 3 shurikens as she launched them. Let's see how they will react. C6, said Sakura, as she dashed back as the 2 boys separated, dashing towards 2 different positions. Yujiro frowned. C6? She watched her side disappear in the bamboo patch behind her, while Naruto ended up somewhere in front of her. Sakura remained alone in the center. Were they using the girl as bait? No, there was a slight shimmer on the ground, beside the girl. An illusion. She jumped out of the bamboo trees as she heard a slicing sound. Since when did they give giant shurikens to Genins? Another one was thrown from the opposite direction as she dodged out of the way. Well, they had no idea where she actually was, and they knew better than to fight her head on as she appeared and slammed her right foot against the illusion to break the cloak, expecting to see a cowardly Genin behind it. But when the illusion broke, she saw snakes, a lot of black snakes ready to bite her. Quick movements and a volley of shurikens destroyed all of them. She had to admit they were going beyond expectations. She scoffed. How was she going to compete with Aoba teaching if this was the results? She watched with vivid interest as 9 almost invisible wires fell over the training ground. They were probably setting off a trap with launchers. How were they going to let it start without drawing attention to themselves, she wondered. An ink lion roared as it charged towards her from the left. The teeth were dangerous, but the tail, was that the tail of a snake? She simply punched aside the ink creature. She had to quickly tilt her head and grab the wrist and snapped it as she threw the Genin that burst out of the ink. As Naruto flipped and landed, to his defense though, he did not scream. He jumped back into the bamboo patch. As she watched him go off, maybe it was time she called the exercise done. She had seen enough, hadn't she? But it was fun. On Anvu missions, you didn't really have the time to toy with opponents. But in this situation, she was having fun. And there was nothing the 3 Genins could do to actually hurt her. It was a nice change of pace. She'd probably have to buy lunch for the three, of course, and maybe even lunch for Naruto to make up for doing that to his wrist. But still, it was enjoyable. It was then that she heard that soft, muffled cry and the snapping of bones. Had the boy reset his own wrist? Well, that took guts. Well, she had let him go. If she had simply moved with a kunai, she would have killed him already. The trap was probably ready, because in the middle of steel wires, Sai appeared next. She cocked her head to the side before she brought out her own sword. As she twirled it, it was an open space. Katanas were a must. As she charged ahead, quietly making a clone to finish the move, while she simply hid in the bamboo trees. Sai did not dodge, but then he didn't need to, because it was an ink clone that fell on the ground in a black puddle. The wires snapped around her clone before a barrage of shurikens and kunais and needle littered the area. She could have snapped the wires with ease and escaped, but a Chunin have to sweat their way out of it if they did not die. Alright, she said. She emerged from her hiding spot. Exercise is over. Come on out, she said. 3 seconds later, and the 3 Jennies were out in front of her. Sweat grind for some reason, and the girls smelled like oil. But none of them were too bad, as Naruto was enclosed with bamboo canes and steel wire, and it was tightened firmly. You all did well, she said, but I have some questions. However, as she looked towards Sakura, you're the team leader. Why were you and Sai taking orders from Naruto? Well, Sakura said, he's a field leader. I'm the people person, he's a wicked one. Yujiro nodded. Generally, the field leader was used in groups of more than 7 shinobis, where the field leader was needed to keep communications and the operatives in line. What exactly does C6 mean? Asked Yujiro. I suppose it's a battle plan, RDP plan, she said. Contingency. Plan 6, said Sakura in a low voice. Ayoba Sensei had contingencies from Alpha to Omega, and then he had Crop 10. When one of those happened, the purpose is to survive rather than fight. And Onvu's at Crop 6, said Yujiro. Onvu figure wanting your guts is Crop 6, said Naruto with a nod. Onvu commander is at Crop 7. S rank is Crop 8. Crop 9, Kagi. Crop 10, an entire village out to get you. Ayoba Sensei used to say that if you reach Crop 9, you were clearly doing something wrong, as you're part of a shinobi, said Sakura. I see, said Yujiro. How would you communicate one with the other? I did not hear radio chatter. Sai pulled his scroll, as he created that ink needle as he threw it towards Naruto. It curled upon Naruto's arm, and it became kanji. I see, but how did they answer back? Naruto tapped twice in the words. A small chakra filled them and reformed them. The next moment it condensed back into a chakra needle, and Naruto threw it. It hit Sai and it showed the words. It required chakra control and a good aim, said Sakura. But it was the best that we could come up with that didn't require sound. And we're still working on silent hand signs. I see, said Yujiro. Well, I suppose we can go to the hospital for Naruto injury, and then that won't be needed, Sensei, said Naruto. As Naruto unbound his wrists, and it was completely fine, not even a scratch. Alright, said Yujiro. You did tell me about this, didn't you? Yes, I did, said Naruto. It wasn't on purpose, she said. You were good. And I acted on instincts. This should say a lot about your team. I did not specifically manhandle you there. As she saw it, I glint in his eyes a moment ago. It was either distrust or reluctance. It would be a long way before any of them trust her, like their sensei. But perhaps they would do in time. And to get them in Onvu because they fit the job perfectly. Just from their way that you're starting out. To brag about the entire team that she got in the Onvu wouldn't be too bad at least. Well, from what I saw, there is no doubt that you're all ready for Chunin exams, she said. Let's move to another training ground. This is ill-suited for a standard stamina building. Training ground 7 should be free. You guys go ahead, I'll put things back as they were here. As they made their way off. Once they were gone, she looked up in the sky. Before she exhaled, Hatake-san, you can come out, she said. Someone flashed next to her. Oh ma, you found me. You were watching since the beginning, right? She asked. Oh, I was just lost in the road of life. And I stumbled upon this era by chance. As she sweat dropped. Really? She shook her head. Hatake-san, you don't want them to participate in the exams. It was the only reason she could think of. Because at the moment she talked about Chunin exams, she sensed him. And she knew that he hasn't gone so soft over the years. Why would I do that, said Kakashi. Just train them well, he said. They're pretty special. We don't want them hurt. She raised the eyebrow. It's about the Uzumaki, isn't it? Well, he's a bit more special than the others. But you should value the entire team. I am not blind, she said. The Hokage told me of his parentage. Good. Then you know why. Still, said Yujiro. He should at least be granted. I wouldn't go there, said Kakashi. If there's something worse than go to a tomb every day, it is to know that grave is empty. Maybe you're right, senpai. As she turned thoughtful, did you see his eyes? Oh no, don't stiffen like that, said Kakashi. reading the book. She glared at him as he avoided her question. She sighed, fine. But no, it's my team now. Please don't try and meddle with them. Don't you have your own team to talk with? They won't be in the exams. Unfortunate training accident. As he closed the book, think I should go. Even fashionably late. Can run out sometime. She sighed as she looked around. The training room that didn't really need to be repaired by her. After all, it's a duty that some Chunin will take upon themselves eventually. With that, she jumped off. She supposed they could eat afterwards. Then go and take a D-rank mission. Yes, that wouldn't be too much trouble. Unfortunately, the D-rank mission was the worstest mission ever. As they were in the library record, public Konoha library records, they had to file and re-stamp everything. And also dust. As UJ was there leaning up against the wall, her eyes closed. While Sakura cleaned and waxed and brought the files aside, who stamped them back close. The job was being done quietly, but the group was silent, really silent. They were told not to read any of the things inside. Naruto was waxing on the cabinet when something fell. It was a photo. It was a Genin. She had bright red hair that fell down to her shoulders, violet eyes, and a bright grin on her face. As he turned back to find out where it belonged, but all he got was UK. Joining promotion. He looked around for the U archive. As his gaze didn't linger for a moment, his sensei wasn't in sight, and since his job was to settle back everything, he had to open the archive, so he did. As he went into the UK, Otsumi Kona was not the person in the picture since he was a male. Yurero Kona was not the person either. He then looked at another one. Red hair, violet eyes. Wait. As Naruto paused, Uzumaki? Last name. Her name was Kushina Uzumaki. His eyes started to read over the data from the date, the service. There was no marriage. A result of the Kyuubi attack. It was a stamp. Mark reject for her leaving the shinobi program. But no other explanation. As a thought popped in Naruto's mind. Tell Kakashi if Kushina could see him, she would kill him. We're dropping off the radar with you. As Naruto blinked. As his gaze settled on her team composition. Team 12. Uzumaki Kushina. Jonin Sensei, Orochimaru. The folder fell from his hand and dropped on the table. He heard footsteps behind him. Quickly, he closed the folder as he acted like everything was normal. Everything alright, Naruto? A voice said. As it was his sensei. Yes, said Naruto. I was just looking where this pile had to go. Yuji narrowed her eyes, suspicious. You look at any of these, she asked. No, said Naruto. It's just that they shouldn't be here. The U archives is on the other side, right? She moved towards the first folder of the file. Why was you over here? Yes, this is normal, she said. They shouldn't actually be here. I'll take care of moving these, she said. Nice catch. Look around if you find any others, she asked. Yeah, said Naruto, as he looked into his palm where the picture was still. As he pushed it in his jacket. Time skip. Later that same day. It was when that Naruto remembered about his picture, which he was sure the woman was his mother. As he was sitting down with Danzo, as he was eating dinner. How was your day been? Asked Danzo. The new sensei is an Anvu, said Naruto. We went to clean the archives today. Write anything interesting, said Danzo. How? What? No, of course not, said Naruto. When I was your age, I always give a quick peep to the folders that had my surname, said Danzo. I was an orphan, you know. I never felt like I had any connection. But then again, Konoha was just growing and hope was trying to loom over the future. Danzo sensei, said Naruto. What were the Hokages like? What brought this on? The third, he spoke about how the Hokage should put the village before a single shinobi. So I wonder, what were the others like before him? Well, said Danzo, the first Hokage always had a smile on his face, and just something happy about him. He used to have the saying that the simple things were the most beautiful. He is the reason why Konoha have so many different clans that live peacefully. Tobirama sensei was more pragmatic. He firmly believed in laws, placing them before the people. He was colder than his older brother, but also more logical. You can never fully trust someone unless you hold their heart in your hand, he commented. However, they both value the village before the individual. But you must understand, Naruto, they value the shinobi as well. They never asked for something they themselves was not ready to give. The second Hokage sacrificed himself to save his team from the Ginkaku force, knowing fully that he would not survive the diversion. The first Hokage battled against Madara and all the Bijous, defeating and imprisoning them. Naruto's eyes widened at the implication. He was that strong? Indeed, said Danzo. He came from an era of war. always have a way to take everything though. That is why when they're fought, you must fight with no moderation or mercy. No lapse of judgment, they must fight without any regret or any second thinking. To wait and see is to stall, and to stall is to have your enemy rise back up once again. Danzo Sensei, said Naruto. What about the heroes of war? The 3 Sanins? Do they place a village before? No, said Danzo, interrupting Naruto. This is a lesson that must be learned well when you have students, Naruto. Power, begin freedom, and corruption in equal amount. The more powerful someone is, the more free they are, and the less laws make sense on that person. Tsunade Senju, the heir of a noble Senju clan, is an alcoholic drunk that spends her time racking a bout of death around the elemental nation by gambling and losing. The second one, Jiraiya, is the author of perverted novels, a spy network so lax it is a wonder why it's still going. He refused to choose an heir for his techniques, and he has already released the Konoha forehead protector for that oil forehead from the toads, making him loyal to the village only in name itself. And finally, there was the smartest of the 3 of them, Orochimaru. He was the brightest, the quick thinker. I personally thought to myself, who now has become the traitor. I was the one that placed him in Anpu, and that was probably his downfall. He no longer answered to me, but owned the Hokage. But Hiruzen was too soft. He did not see the signs in war. Orochimaru experiments were needed. He was the one that co-engineered half of the medical pills that we use, and a few summoning contracts enter our village because of him. Yet for all his work, in the end he felt freedom because he was given too much power. And the laws of Konoha was like tiny shackles that he shattered with a single movement. But he sacrificed his student for one more rigorous experiments, and then betrayed the village. And then having a battle with Hiruzen to a standstill. And then later on, Jiraiya. There is no greater enemy than him for the well-being of Konoha. He's after me, said Naruto, his throat clenching slightly. He wants to kill me? Probably not, said Danzo. He always had a fascination with the Uzumakis. He had a student that was one, if I remember correctly. Why, said Naruto. Who knows, said Danzo. Perhaps he was curious about the vitality of the clan. He became engrossed with immortality in the end, and that was his downfall. He made mistakes, and Anvus find him. Laboratories, gruesome experiments. How did the Kyuubi break free, said Naruto. As Danzo smiled at that. The previous container failed to keep the seal in check while giving birth, although many said that her sensei Orochimaru had a part in it, but there was no proof, of course. The Kyuubi was then sealing me, said Naruto. Was she my mother? That's a S-rank secret, said Danzo. Are you my mother? Naruto asked. Danzo looked at Naruto strangely, before a grin came on his face. No, I am not. So she was my mother, said Naruto. Said Naruto as Danzo saw where the kid was going. He asked him if he was his mother, knowing that Danzo could answer freely about that. But whenever he asked about that woman, Danzo could not answer freely because she was. He has gotten smarter. And she died that night when the Kyuubi escaped, said Naruto. From her. That's the S-rank secret, said Danzo. My mother died, right, said Naruto. That's the S-rank secret, Danzo said. As Naruto looked at Danzo sternly, was Danzo messing with him or something? Is my mother dead? Said Naruto. That's the S-rank secret, said Danzo. Why wasn't I told? Said Naruto. Because there's nothing you could do. Where is she? Said Naruto. That's the S-rank secret, said Danzo. The hidden stone? Said Naruto. No, said Danzo. Where do you think a wounded person will go after battle? Hospital, said Naruto. Is she in the hospital of Konoha? That is a S-rank secret. Before we proceed in this S-rank secret false and reality, let me warn you, you won't like what you will find if you decide to pursue this. As Naruto closed his eyes and took a deep breath, could he trust his sensei's words? Whose words could he believe? The Kyuubi. But it wasn't talking to him. He supposed the fox was there playing shogi while smirking, and he hadn't trusted the Kyuubi and he paid a lot of consequences. So perhaps he should trust his sensei now. Alright, said Naruto. I'll think about it. Danzo smiled. Thank you for your trust, Naruto, he said. You did the right thing. It really pained me to force you like this, but... Danzo shook his head. Let's talk about the upcoming Chunin exams, shall we? Are you ready for it, he asked. Naruto felt slightly hollowed as he started to begin small talk. He acted like a coward he should have asked. But now he will have to find out on his own. Meanwhile, Yujiro was washing the dishes as she heard Hayate's voice. I was chosen to be the proctor for the third part of the exams, he said. Is your team gonna participate? Oh, yes, she said. Why did they choose you though, she asked. Well, you know with my lungs as they are. Strenuous, activities out. And I'm usually doing counterintelligence within Konoha. And since they did need a proctor. So who's the first and the second? Ibiki is the first. Anko is the second. As he slowly slid dish in the cupboard. So, your plan on sending the rookies out? They aren't rookies, she said as she shook her head. They're solid, all of them. Sai and Naruto are clear-cut Chunins already. It's a shame that Naruto doesn't have any technique. But they can understand the thought though. Well, it's practical, said Hayate, with the amount of chakra that he has. So, how are they gonna enter the fray? Assassination squad, she said. All three of them. The girl is a trap maker, and Sai is a recon, and Naruto is a strategist. You know, Hayate said. I'll have to tell them I can't be the proctor if your team is up for running. I mean, it is a conflict of interest, he said. Understood, she said. It's time for your medicine. Oh yes, I'm going, he says. He made his way to the bathroom. As she looked at the dishes, as she knew every possible way to kill someone right here. As thoughts flashed through her mind, was she really going back to normal life? She was just waiting for the summon to come and tell her that her mission was to resume, for her to go back to being cat. It was rather difficult to just switch back to normal life. She looked up at the mirror and she saw her reflection. It was her in her cat mask. You're not screwed up, she said to herself. You're just different. Meanwhile, on a dark rooftop at Konoha near the hot springs. Damn, I arrived too late, said Jiraiya to himself. Damn it, as no one is here and the hot springs are closed. Moments later, Jiraiya moved from rooftop to rooftop, silently making his way through the village. He avoided the en route patrols, who would have wasted his time to identify that and this and that, and he avoided possible civilians who were a fan of his erotic novels, who would have wanted autograph and make a fuss over him. As he pulled out a brush and wrote, I'm in town, see you soon, old geezer. As he placed the note right on the tower window before launching himself. As he arrived on top of the monument, as he took in the sight of his village at night, lights were everywhere. As he looked towards the Red District area, food or woman? That was always the dilemma, wasn't it? As his eyes focused as he saw a few ladies in the red light district, looking quite luscious as blood leaked from his nose. Landing at the first bar, he stepped inside. As he spread his arms wide, who's ready for a party? Cheerful noise of girls coming his way was all the confirmation he needed. As he got swarmed as he sat down, he was Jiraiya of the Sun and he had money. Yes, things were gonna be fun. It didn't take the woman much time to leave when they saw the bright robes of the Hokage. That often happened when a Hokage stepped into a whorehouse. As women scamper away, all of them. Jiraiya, my misguided student, Hiruzen said. What are you doing here? Well, it was late. I didn't want to interrupt your work. Nonsense, Hiruzen says. He took a seat next to him. What is happening? Over the hidden stone. They're sending a team. They're sending a team with the Tishikage granddaughter in it. Political backslash would be terrible if she died. That old kook. He's basically asking us to promote her, or he'll bring war. It get worse, Jiraiya said. I know from a source that you're scouting for the Jinchuriki of Konoha. The trick that we play on them with Orochimaru. There's no suspicious that we don't actually have the Kyuubi check. There's more to it, isn't there? Asked the third. Yes, normally, they wouldn't be this forward, but rumors are that both of their Jinchurikis has gone missing. And everyone is trying to find out who's at fault. They're sending them to scout ignorance and having them shipped back if discovered. I knew Anki was a scoundrel, but to go so far as to use his granddaughter, every man must have at least an etiquette. There's more, said Jiraiya as he took a swip of his sake. The hidden ring is in shambles. Someone killed Hanzo and took his place. Guess what? There's no mention of it anywhere in the streets. Not a single whisper at all. It's like he never died. You expect them to be overjoyed, but nothing. Hell, I didn't even see his body. Only all of his top guards dead. And I heard that he no longer leaves his rooms. Because he's dead. Hiruzen took out his pipe as he lit it up. Anything else to add? There has been rumors Jiraiya fidget. As Hiruzen knew that Jiraiya never fidget unless it was something personal. That Tsunade has been seen with Orochimaru. As Hiruzen turned towards him, you know if my source weren't trusted, I would never have brought this up. And you know how much I value Tsunade-sensei. I know, Hiruzen said. So, do you have any solid proof? Any lead on a reason why? No, Jiraiya said. Unless he managed to convince her. Because of what happened, said Jiraiya. Hiruzen grimaced as he thought about what happened in the past. This time, try and contact her, Jiraiya. If Orochimaru ever gets his hands on her medical knowledge. I understand, Sensei, Jiraiya said. His voice sounded serious. Well, enough of this. I didn't call you back only for the report. There's a problem with Naruto, Jiraiya. Jiraiya tense a bit. What happened? Danzo, said Hiruzen. He managed to sink his claws into him. He's fast-tracking him for Anbu. He can't do that, Jiraiya said. You can't do that. It is out of my hands, Hiruzen said. If there's any consolation, none of the clans would want to hear about the Jinjulki being the personal right hand of the Hokage or some rubbish like that. It only makes things worse. Anbu's changed people. Look what he did to Orochimaru. You can't fault the program because of one shinobi, Hiruzen said. No, but I can fault you for not catching on to him faster, said Jiraiya. You were supposed to be there. That was my fault. But I did not see it when I could, and I was trying to keep the village afloat. And someone was stupidly somewhere else, trying to forget about all his duties. Do you know I came close to branding all 3 of my students as missing names? Where were you when the village needed you the most? Jiraiya turned his head, averting his gaze. Living a dream, I suppose. But it doesn't matter, does it? Indeed. What matters now is what you'll be doing with Naruto. I could take him on as an apprentice, show him the good life. The light side, you know? Here's inside, please avoid taking him to a whorehouse on his first day of training. I still recall how twitchy your Genins were the next month. Who does he take most from? Is he a mini Kushina? Or he was, Hiruzen said. He was a bright ray of light once, but now there is just nothing. On one hand, I admire his dedication to hold his emotions like a true shinobi. But on the other side, a child should never be so locked up. I couldn't take him in, Sensei, Jiraiya whispered. I was always around, and me taking care of a baby, that would be the beginning of a tragic comedy, you know it. I wasn't faulting you, my student. But to answer your question, I think a melancholic Minato would be more suiting. However, you will have to fight to gain his trust. If you can't win him over, then you will have to try with his team. They recently lost their sensei, and while I already gave him a replacement, so he trusts his team, Jiraiya said. That's not bad. Not a bad thing at all. I thought Danzo would have already made him distrust everything and everyone. Well, I doubt he will ever trust me again, Hiruzen said. After his sensei died, I chose my words rather poorly. Doubt that he viewed me more than anything else than a tyrant who just sacrifices man. He's just a kid, Jiraiya said. Perhaps he will come through. He is as much as a kid as Orochimaru was, said Hiruzen. He's already killed. He's already able to look at you and see a target, rather than see a person. Danzo, train him well. But if this keep up, they will no longer be a Naruto to train. Just another copy of Danzo. So I have to take him out, show him the fun of the world. No, Hiruzen said. He would more likely rebuff you that way if you try that. Take the no-nonsense approach with him. The same one that you used with Minato. He will respond to that kindly. But do not try to make him a copy of your former student. Make him his own person because he already is. And what if his own person has an agenda against Konoha? One similar to Orochimaru, Danzo, or who else? Hiruzen breathed deeply before exhaling. You are the one with the full jutsu knowledge to extract the Kyuubi. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes. He's my godson. A godfather who was never there. Can never claim to have one, said Hiruzen. They entrusted him to me, sensei. And you turned and left the village. I already said my piece about this, said Jiraiya. People inside the brothel were already leaving. After all, they didn't want to overhear something that might cause her death, as the last one just paid and left. Except for the new patrons, who was Anbu guards. And the new bartender who just took his shift at that moment, all of a sudden. No, Hiruzen said, but you cannot fault me for taking care of the village first, Jiraiya. I did what I could do for him. After the attack, Konoha had to remain united, and the clans had to be pacified. Do you know that they wanted the Kyuubi to be extracted from Naruto? A nameless orphan to place with clan heirs. Thankfully, the seal could not be replicated, or you wouldn't have a godson to begin with. I know that, said Jiraiya with a snarl. I also placed Konoha first. I had to. You begged me to do what I can do to keep the other village away. You beg all of us. Snazzy had to heal on his hip for Kami's sake. Keep the old man away. We all have our problems and fault in this, said Hiruzen. There is not a single innocent soul around here, and we both know it. Yet, I must ask you once more. For this. For the good of Konoha, if it comes to it. You will. Jiraiya exhale. I will not kill my godson unless he actually become a threat to Konoha citizens. And if it will come to that, I will not be coming back, said Jiraiya. That's all I can ask of you, said the third. And that's all I can give, Jiraiya said. The next few days went by quickly as preparation for Chunin exams reached a new peak. Foreign diplomats and ambassadors started to arrive. Team 13 was locked in a rigorous training, with kunais, shurikens, flying from them from all over. Thorns had been reduced, as it was scratching their legs and their feet. The choice was pretty simple. You could dodge the kunais and shurikens, but end up getting stabbed in the leg by the thorns and slowing down your movements. Or you could look away from the kunais and shurikens and focus on the thorns to not step on them and end up getting embedded by kunais and shurikens. Sensei was obviously not aimed at their eyes or where a major artery was, but the risk was still there. He was throwing a real shuriken every 1 or every 5, but the other 6 with them, the groups, they were just wooden ones. Every 5 or 6 throws, there was a real shuriken that came, but the others were just wooden. Because their senses could not tell the difference in weight and speed, but Yu-Gi-Oh could. Purpose was simple, to be able to concentrate on 2 different things at the same time. They could place their feet down without getting stabbed by the thorns, and dodge the kunais and shurikens. The test would be passed. Sai was of course downplaying his abilities. Jiu knew that much. Both Naruto and Sakura were actually quick to catch on, and the boy wounds were bleeding, but barely if he got scratched. It had to be one of those Kyuubi effects on his physique, as his wounds would scratch, bleed, and then heal quickly. Jiu then threw one of the other volleys. This time, she aimed at Sai with full strength. He had to duck fast as his shirt scraped up against the thorns. As she threw another volley, there was a real one mixed between them. As he would aim towards his leg, nothing to hurt him too bad. But Sakura jumped in the way, seeing that Sai was down, as it grazed her leg. As Naruto jumped forward this time, the shurikens and kunais then came out hard, as Yu-Gi-Oh wanted to see which one he would choose to protect. But he tackled Sai and Sakura down to the ground as the shurikens passed by harmlessly over their heads. As Yu-Gi-Oh came out of the bushes, clapping. "Very well done," she said. "Now get out of that patch of bushes and over to the side. Anyone need to be patched up?" "I'm fine, Sensei. I'm not even bleeding," said Naruto. "Lucky you," said Sakura. She wobbled her way out of vegetation as she pulled out the gauze disinfected and bandaged from her jacket pocket. Sai then looked up toward Naruto's hand that was a few meters away from his face. "Here. You got a bad scratch on your cheek." "Thank you, Dickle," said Sai as he grabbed disinfectant. "Well then," said Yu-Gi-Oh. She went into her jacket and pulled out 3 papers. "These are the papers for Chunin exams. All of you must sign them and bring them to me tomorrow. If one of you don't participate, then none of you will. I will see you tomorrow at the academy entrance," she said. Before any of them could say anything, their sensei flickered away. "Damn it," Sakura said. "There go plan A." "Cherry, what's plan A?" said Sai. "Well, my parents wanted reassurance about Chunin exams and my preparations for them," she said, looking down. "They heard they can be pretty bloody and whatnot, and they are afraid for me since Ino's death." As Naruto flinched at that, he couldn't help it. Sakura saw it. "For the last time, Naruto, it wasn't your fault," she said. "Yeah, alright," said Naruto as he nodded back slowly. "So what's the problem?" he asked. "The problem is, they want me to invite the whole team to dinner, Sensei included." Are you sure?" said Naruto. "Yes, I'm sure. They're fine with it." "No, you can't bail out. I'm using a teammate card." She then pointed at Sai. "You have to help out a teammate, right?" Sai looked at her. Before he nodded, "Is a gift required, Cherry?" No, but please avoid talking about what you call Naruto, okay?" She said, that small blush in her face. "What I call D," she said. "Drawings?" said Sai. "Since when do you speak about your drawings?" Sakura said. "I'm talking about Dickless. I know you call him that. So don't talk about things like Dick around my parents." "Oh, I nearly forgot," said Sai. "When did you become so kinky, Cherry?" Bam! She punched him. "Tonight at 7, Naruto," she said. "And no gift neither. Just be prepared to be asked a lot of questions. That's pretty much it." "Alright," said Naruto. "I better hurry home and change that." It was in that moment, or maybe it was the sun in the position, or maybe she was just too tired and was not thinking properly. Sakura moved forward as she kissed Naruto on the cheek. "Thank you, Naruto-kun," she said. As she stepped back, she saw his eyes wide and his face a bit red. She was confused, until it slammed into her like a train as she realized what she just did. She didn't even notice. She ran off quickly after saying something, but Naruto did not hear. Dickless? Dickless? As Naruto said nothing, as he just stood there, Sai brought his right hand up, but not even snapping his hand in front of Naruto's face did nothing. There's ramen behind you. As Naruto twitched. "Oh yeah, I have to go. See you tonight, Sai. Bye." As Sai was confused, left alone, he simply shrugged as he wondered what happened when he was knocked away. That night, Sakura was pacing around in the kitchen as she was trying to forget what the hell she had did. She was just thankful for him to come in over to convince her parents that no, she was not going to her death in Chunin exams. Her team was strong and they were the best. With Naruto inside, there was nothing that the exam could send that they could not face. "Sakura, stop pacing," her mother said. "You will leave a dent in the floor." "They won't be late," she blurted out. "They will probably be on a clock, both of them." "Yes," said Momoke, as she looked towards the clock. The moment it dropped on 7, there was a knock at the door. "It's them," Sakura said, as she quickly made her way down. "Sakura, No running, said Mobuki. It had been so long since her daughter acted that way to begin with. As she remembered when the Yamnaka girl came over to play with her daughter. She was always a bundle of energy back then, but she always closed herself off when something bad happened. When she was made fun of, she usually returned home and closed herself off in her room. When she and Ino fought over Sasuke, she came home and she closed herself off, and she did not speak to anyone for a week. Seeing her bounced on her feet as she welcomed her friends made her mother felt happy. After all, what mother didn't wish for a child to be happy? Kaisashi was glaring at both boys in his fatherly way. Both of them seemed to be proper gentlemen though, as Sakura introduced them. Well, dinner is ready, said Mobuki, before her husband could say anything. The usual compliments of the dinner done, a slight silence settled in. Sakura was tense. She looked like she was about to jump at any instant, but against who or what? They had no idea. Sai then opened his mouth as Sakura threw the bread that she had in her hand. It lodged right in the boy's throat. Sakura, said Kaisashi. Sorry, just acting reflex. As Naruto had to perform the Heimlich on Sai. I feel there's a story behind this, and Mobuki. So, Naruto, how's Sakura doing? Well, she's doing great. She's Chunin, no doubt, said Naruto, as he spoke rather quickly. Said Kaisashi. It seems he can't lie to save his life. That's always a good quality. Dad, said Sakura. Sakura-san is a proficient kunoichi, said Sai. The both of them looked towards Sai, waiting for the punchline. But he simply sipped his water. They were shocked. As he placed on the water, she is a skilled trap maker, and she will provide a solid assistant in the exam. Am I dreaming? Sai is acting civil, said Sakura. Sakura, said Mobuki. There's nothing nice thing to say. He looked like a pleasant guy as well. Are you a musician by hobby, she asked. You have so nimble fingers. Sai looked at her. I draw. I enjoy it. Oh nice, Mobuki said. Do you have any drawings with you? Sai rummaged through his jacket pocket as he pulled out a book. As he was drawing of trees, animals, the city, Kaisashi looked at both boys the same way, like they did not wish to intrude. He knew that type of reaction himself. He was an orphan himself. An orphan, the war had took away his family when the Hidden Stone bombing was near the village that he lived in, and he was transferred to Konoha orphanage. When they found out he couldn't use chakra, he was moved to a civilian school, and that was that. He became a baker soon afterwards. He relished the taste of bread after all. It was the first thing that he'd eaten after they found him under his broken home. We should eat before the food gets cold. Nice drawing, by the way. Think you can make a portrait? Drawing portrait is what I like the most, said Sai. You can draw anyone you like, living or not. As Naruto looked up towards the man. You don't have to worry about Sakura, sir. We're teammates. We look out for each other, and unless we die, there was no way they would get to her. Plus, she's the one in the rear guard too. As she was touched, he was about to say something when Sai spoke, his face completely blank. I think she enjoyed watching her back. Sakura blinked as she narrowed her eyes at Sai. She's rather kinky like that, said Sai. Sakura screamed before she launched herself at Sai, knocking him off the chair. As the tension was broken as they started to laugh, everyone. Meanwhile, outside the house, on a nearby rooftop, Jiraiya was watching everything. She's just like Snavi, if you say so, Jiraiya-sama. Female voice did not startle him, as he felt her coming. Keep an eye out for your team. It is not uncommon for enemy Jonin sensei to scout the house of village prospects, Chunins. Naruto and Sai current engagements are satisfactory enough to defend themselves, but Sakura's civilian family is a risk factor. So you're gonna be here all night starting tonight. That's dedication, said Jiraiya. Thank you, she said. And it's also stupid if you don't tell them personally, said Jiraiya. But the target wished to be protected without knowing, she said. That's unrewarding, said Jiraiya. You're talking about trying to earn their trust in a weird way like this one. You're their Jonin sensei. Just be honest with them, Jiraiya said. Tell them the rest straight away, or they will jump head on again. Tell them that giving up if things get messy is fine. The way of a shinobi is not in the honorable death, but in fighting cunningly and retreating to see another day. I would pass along your message, Jiraiya-sama, said Yujiro, as she turned her head back towards the window that gave way into the kitchen. Sakura was telling stories. She blinked and Jiraiya was gone. As she pulled her ration bar, as she decided to watch a group, she could have accepted the invitation, but then again, her favorite dinner topic was talking about how to gutta in Shinobi without being heard. She wasn't exactly social after being on for so long. Next morning, day of Chunin exams, the three of them stood in front of their sensei who was waiting for them outside the academy. She actually looked concerned as their gaze softened. She straightened their neckline and checked their clothes. As they were ready, she passed to Sakura a bundle of explosive tags. Use them well, she said, the girl winking, and bring the boys home. Yes, Sensei, said Sakura. Sai was given 2 vials of mercury green liquid and 2 pouches of herb pills, standard Unvu poison and adrenaline pills. No more than 2 drops to kill, and no more than 2 pills a week. Understood? Understood, said Sai. As she then moved towards Naruto, as she handed him an Unvu issued Tanto. This one served me well. Don't lose it, don't break it, and come back to give it back to me personally. As Naruto nodded, he then realized there was 5 heavy military kunai stashed to his side, with 2 lacing off ninja wires, and 2 metal of black wires packed in a metal pouch. She had to have placed it on him while he wasn't looking. She was good. Go in, 3rd floor. Come back alive, understood? Yes, Sensei, they all said. And dismissed, she said. The moment they were gone inside, she flicked her away as she arrived to the Jonin lounge, just to see everyone tense. What happened, she said. As Kurenai looked rather pissed off, everyone did. That was in the circle who was angry. He stole both of my available Genins, said Kakashi. And he didn't seem fit to inform me, and I now have a dysfunctional team who was never tested before, and one Genin who thought that he is passed over because he doesn't belong to a functional clan. On paper, I now have a tracking team to Kurenai, the Inuzaka, the Aburame, and the Hyuga, 3 clan children, while he, as she pointed at Asuma, took Ami from Kakashi to complete his whole, because the 100-year-old Genin did not want to participate in the exam. What makes it worse is that he went to his father behind our backs and said nothing. It's not my fault, said Asuma. No, said Kakashi. Then the Hokage came up with this. Asuma did not reply. Let's hope this don't turn into a bloodbath, said Kurenai. From what I saw, Kiba is boisterous beyond belief. Shino is distant and calculated, but Hinata, you couldn't have done anything, Asuma said. Hayashi would have made his daughter participate no matter what. They're locked in a heated debate because he has 2 daughters and not a male son. Some of the members want to turn the favor over to Hisashi, son, that is a part of the branch family. Yujiro heard the Maiko transmitter in her Genin's clothes buzz, as she had placed on them to listen into their conversation. You place a microphone on your team? Said Kurenai. Shh, I'm listening. Harmless genjutsu, said Sakura. You know, on the 2nd floor, I heard Aizumo and Kadetsu place a genjutsu to keep the Genins on their toes, said Kakashi. Sima, Theta 6. She heard Naruto's voice whisper, meaning a Genin, who was probably trained in taijutsu. Gamma 9. Naruto's voice could be heard in pain. Quit it already, you two. I'm sorry, Lee, but my heart is already taken. The voice of Sakura could be heard. Gamma 2000. Gamma 2000. Naruto, stop it. It's immature. Yujiro wondered what the hell is going on when she heard it. Yosh! As she pulled out the earpiece and threw it away. What happened? Asked Kurenai. Guy. He's there. Naruto must have saw that horrible sight of Guy and his apprentice hugging. That illusion that just seemed to scar you. As, after a few seconds, he heard it. Yosh! My youthful Jonins! She quickly moved away from the situation. Find a place to listen in on the Genins once again. After all, she always had a backup. Meanwhile, Naruto and his team finally made their way. A few people stood in the room. All of them there had bypassed the genjutsu without a second glance, as Naruto heard the fox growling at the back of his head. Shikaku. Interesting. It's time to make myself known. Now concentrate, Naruto. Don't appear weak. As Naruto felt a burning rage just bubble up inside him, his first thought was to slaughter everyone nearby him. But he took several deep breaths. Why? Said Naruto. The seal. As it vanished. As the fox spoke, the seal normally take a trickle. But if I wish, I can push it all into your system and burst these pipes to make you go feral and kill everyone around you. But that is not the intention here. I did it because I wanted to get his attention. His, said Naruto. You. As Naruto blinked as he looked up, the cold eyes of a red-haired boy looked deeply into his eyes, flanked by his 2 teammates, a Kunoichi, and another boy. What's your name? The boy asked. Who wants to know? Sakura said as she rubbed the other boy as she stood next to Naruto. Listen, girl, the female member said. Just answer his question, okay? Temari, shut up. The girl just staggered back a bit. Mother wants your blood, said Gaara, and she will have it. The door slipped open as other Genins came in. But not until you learn to fear my name, Gar said. Shikaku, said Kurama. You were always the one trying to please our father the most. Let us see. Who fears off well between hatred and misery? But guys, be in tips right here. If you want the next part to do, like, subscribe, comment down below, and turn on that bell notification to stay posted. But more for now, see you guys soon. Peace.